Welcome back, all my fight fans. Today, I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for UFC 310 in Las Vegas, Nevada, December 7th. I'm incredibly excited for this fight card. It's a banger. I apologize to anybody out there for getting this video out late. I know it's a couple days before the fights. I like to have my prediction videos out like a week or two before the fights, but as you guys can kind of tell by my setup here, I'm not quite set up in my new place yet. I'm currently in the process of moving. So once I'm fully settled in, you guys can expect a lot more MMA content on this channel. With that all out of the way, let's get into the predictions. So kicking us off with the first fight of the night, we actually have a rebook. I already went over this fight before. I forget what card it was supposed to be on. I believe it was the last one, but it's a heavyweight bout between Kennedy Nzechukwu. I always mess up his name. I'm sorry. Kennedy versus Lucas Brzeski. And Kennedy is currently a minus 600 favorite. I picked him to win previously, and obviously I'm going to be picking him again. I will take him by second round KO. I hope this fight ends in KO. I hate when the first fight of the night's just a boring snooze fest of two heavyweights kind of just hugging each other. But I don't think this will be that. I think this will be a very entertaining heavyweight fight, so don't miss it. Next up, we have a lightweight bout between a senior citizen and a teenager, Clay Guida and Chase Hooper. Clay Guida could literally be Chase Hooper's father. There is a 17-year age difference here. Guida's 42 and Chase Hooper's only 25, so obviously Chase Hooper is a minus 1,000 favorite. I would bet on him. I would bet on him probably by first round submission. He's a crafty submission artist. He's one of those guys, when he first came into the UFC, I believe he was 20 or 21 years old, very young, and he had amazing jiu-jitsu, very slick on the ground. I always thought if this kid, and there's a couple other guys who kind of fall in this category as well, Bryce Mitchell would be another one, but if this kid, Chase Hooper, could figure out his striking, man, he's long and lengthy for the weight class. Maybe he could do some damage here. He's still 25. He's got a lot of room to grow, but I haven't seen those leaps and bounds yet in his striking game. So don't sleep on Clay Guida in this fight. He could get this done. He's a crafty veteran. He's incredibly tough. He's very hard to finish. And he might be able to sneak out a win, but obviously I can't tell you guys to bet against Chase Hooper here. He's quite a bit younger, and he's got the skills to get this done. So I'm going to take Chase Hooper by first round submission. Next up, we have a welterweight bout between Michael Chiesa and Max Griffin. The odds on this one are basically even, and this fight does absolutely nothing for the welterweight division. It just gets to gets to decide if we have a new gatekeeper in Max Griffin or if it's still Michael Chiesa. That's the guy who you have to get through. But this fight really doesn't do anything for the division. I just hope it's a fun fight. I'm going to take Michael Chiesa by second or third round submission, but honestly, it's kind of a coin flip. I could understand why people would take Griffin in this. He does have some hands. I think he has 9 knockouts in his career, but he has 10 losses. So, like I said, fight doesn't do much for the division. But next up, we have a great fight, actually, at flyweight between Cody Durden and Joshua Van. Joshua Van stepped in on short notice a couple fight cards ago, and he did amazing. I really, really like that kid. I believe he was undefeated in the UFC at one point, and then he got knocked out, unfortunately. But he's a very young kid. I think he's 25 or 26, and he has a bright future at flyweight, I'm sure. So I want to see him get a win here. I'm going to take him by decision just because those flyweight bouts don't usually end in a finish, but I'm rooting for Joshua Van in that one, and I'm going to take him to win by decision. Next up, we have a catchweight bout between Chris Weidman and Eryk Anders. The odds on this are basically even, and again, this is a rebook, so I've already broken this fight down, and I don't want to reiterate everything that I said in the previous video, but I'm not the biggest fan of Chris Weidman. On the mic, he's great. Outside of the cage, I really like him. He seems like a chill guy. But he knocked out one of my favorite fighters of all time, and Anderson Silva broke his leg as well. And the eye poke fight, like there's just a couple fights with Chris Weidman that really frustrate me and upset me. So I'm not the biggest fan of him. So I'm going to cheer for Eryk Anders, but if you're putting your money somewhere, I'd probably go with Chris. He has that veteran quality. He's got a lot of fights under his belt, so I'll probably take Chris Weidman by decision if I was a betting man, but I'm going to be cheering for Eryk Anders. So that concludes the early prelims. Let's move on to the prelim. Next up, kicking off the prelims, we have a welterweight bout between Randy Brown and Brian Battle. And this, highlight this fight. This fight is going to be a banger, I guarantee it. It could be a fight of the night. Randy Brown, I believe, is like 19-5, and I believe Battle is 12-2, so they both have quite good records. They both can finish the fight anywhere. They have quite a few finishes, both of them. And there's something about this matchup that I think is perfect. The UFC matchmakers this entire year have been killing it. This is the best year of matchmaking I have ever seen in the history of the UFC. I don't know how old some of you fight fans are, but 10, 15, 20 years ago, especially like 15 years ago, that's what I remember. I'm only 24, but like 15 years ago, a lot of the fights on the prelims just sucked. Like, they're just horrible fighters, like really bad guys with no skill, or the matchups were just bad. Like, you had two really boring grapplers matched up against each other, and they were like the highlight of the prelims. I don't know if you guys remember that era, but there used to be some really bad prelims, and this year it seems like every single prelim is like one that you need to highlight and you need to watch. There's some hot prospect, or there's some amazing matchup, and this is an amazing matchup. I think these guys are going to go hard, and I think we might see a fight of the night here. So definitely highlight this one. As far as picking somebody, I'm going to take Bryan Battle just because he has a slightly better record, and he's a little bit younger. I think he's 4 years younger, and he is a minus 230 favorite. So I'm going to take him to win by decision. I think this is going to be a war. Definitely highlight this fight. Next up, we have a featherweight bout, which... how is this not on the main card? This makes no sense why this fight is not on the main card. This should be like the co-main event. It's the number 5th ranked Movsar Evloev and number 9 ranked Aljamain Sterling. Currently, Evloev is a minus 250 favorite. He's 18-0. Some people have been criticizing him because I believe his last 8 fights were, they were obviously all wins, but they were all by decision. And people don't like decision fighters. That's why we don't like that one guy at welterweight, whoever the champion is right now. I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, I'm going to take Evloev. Even though he's a little bit boring, I actually really like his fighting style. He's super technical. He's sharp on the feet. He's got a great ground game. If Aljamain Sterling gets this to the ground, it will be trouble for Evloev. Aljamain is probably the best in this entire division, and featherweight has a lot of great grapplers, but he's probably the best in the entire division on the ground. He is a menace. He's got that Suliev stretch that he got the same night as Sabit, and he's got some crafty submissions in his repertoire. So look out for Aljo, man. He can get this done at any point in the fight. I really wish this was a 5-rounder, but I'm going to take Evloev. I think he's going to be able to keep it on the feet. He's a little bit sharper with the striking, and I think he's going to squeeze out a decision here and keep that record undefeated. So that's what I got for that one. Next up at welterweight, we have the number 14th ranked Vicente Luque versus Temba Gorimbo from Zimbabwe, and I'm taking that guy. He's a minus 162 favorite, and man, he looks like a menace. Vicente Luque, for a while there, was on the up and up when he was, beating... Who did he beat? He beat, I think, Tyrone Woodley or somebody. He was on the up and coming there, and it looked like he was going to fight for a title shot, and yeah, he kind of got derailed there, which really sucked. I really liked Luque's style, and it feels like that Luque of like 3-4 years ago is just not here anymore. This new Luque doesn't quite have that same aggression as before. Now, I'd like to see Luque come back and get a nice knockout here and kind of resurge his career, because I do think he's one of the best welterweights on the planet when he's on. However, I think that this Themba guy, he's 14-4. 6 wins by submission, 2 by knockout. He's coming off of a win over Nico Price. He beat Brahimaj, who's another hot prospect in this weight division. So I'm going to take the Zimbabwean. I don't even know if that's the right way to say that, but I'm taking the guy from Zimbabwe in this one, although in my heart I will be cheering for Luque. I wish he came back to that prime form from like 3, 4, 5 years ago. That was something to watch. Anyways, next up, our headliner for the prelims. We have the two bitches of Jon Jones. We have Dominic Reyes versus Anthony Smith, the two guys who, one of them arguably beat Jon Jones. I don't think he did. I think Jon Jones got that round 3, but we can discuss that down in the comments. Obviously, Dominic Reyes had the closest fight ever with Jon Jones. Like, that was razor close. It was closer than the Gustafsson fight. It was closer than the Thiago Santos fight, which was a split decision. And the Dominic Reyes-Jon Jones fight was just, like, it wasn't a split decision. It was a regular decision, which doesn't make any sense. If any fight in Jon Jones' career should be a split decision, it's the Reyes fight. I'm a huge Jon Jones fan, and watching that, I was so nervous. At the end of the fight, I'm like, oh, man, I think Jon lost his O. I've been watching this guy for, like, 10, 15 years. He's undefeated. I think I just watched him lose. But no, we got the nod from the judges there, and obviously Dominic Reyes is a minus 340 favorite going into this fight. When he's on, man, like I just kind of described it there, like he could fight a close fight with the GOAT. He can fight a close fight with the greatest of all time. So Anthony Smith, even though some people call him the GOAT on paper, I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. He's getting up there in years, and he's got something over 50 fights at this point. And yeah, I'm going to take Dominic Reyes in this one. It's number 12 versus number 13, so it's kind of a big fight for the top 15. But again, either one of these guys, like, they're not going to fight Pereira. I don't think they're going to get there in time. Pereira wants to go up in weight. And even if they did have an amazing performance and somehow got a title shot off of this fight, which definitely wouldn't happen, but I mean, I think Pereira just mops the floor with either Reyes or Smith. So this fight, it'll be fun. I'm sure John Jones will like watching it, but yeah, that's all I got for that one. Let's move on to the main card. Kicking off the main card, we have a featherweight bout that should be the Eloev Aljamain fight. I don't know why that's not on the main card, but we have a featherweight bout kicking us off with Nate Landwehr versus Du Hoi Choi. Odds on this are basically even. Maybe the matchmakers know something that we don't. Maybe this is a fight of the year contender and we just don't know it. But I hope it's a banger fight. I'm really upset that there's so many fights on the prelims that I think could go over this. Like, this fight doesn't really do much for the featherweight division, whereas the Aljo versus Eloev fight is huge for the division. So, you know, I'm still going to watch it. Like I said, I think it's a banger fight, but I'm going to take Du Hoi Choi. This is a coin flip fight. Don't put any money on it. Like, it's really a coin flip fight. I don't know which way it's going to go. However, the next fight is a featherweight bout between the 13th ranked Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie. So for those of you who don't know, Kron Gracie, I'm sure a lot of you guys know the family name, but he is the son of Rickson Gracie. He's an ADCC world champion. He's an IBJJF world champion. He's beaten guys like Leandro Lowe, who's my favorite jiu-jitsu grappler of all time. He's got like 300 wins. He's often considered the GOAT in the gi. And Kron Gracie, being smaller than him, has choked him out. He's beaten guys like Benil Dariush in jiu-jitsu and a ton of other names. Like, he's got a phenomenal jiu-jitsu record, and if you ever want to watch no-gi jiu-jitsu highlights, go watch Kron Gracie. Like, he has some of the most entertaining no-gi jiu-jitsu highlights I've ever seen in my life. I grew up loving this guy. When they announced that he was coming over to the UFC, I was so excited because I'm like, yes, like, we never got to see Rickson in the UFC. Now we get to see Kron, and maybe, you know, working with the Diaz brothers and stuff, maybe he'll add some striking in there and have some good boxing. His first fight, I forget who it was against, but it might have been Cub Swanson, where he decided to strike with him the whole time, and it was really bad. And then I think he had one against, who was it? I think it was the Canadian fighter, actually, Air Jourdain. I believe he had a fight against him as well. And he hasn't really shown out. Like, not many fights in the last 4 years since he's been signed. Very inactive and horrible performances. So a lot of people are, like, overlooking Kron Gracie in this. However, this matchup is perfect for him. It's a grappler versus grappler, and Bryce Mitchell just got knocked out cold by Josh Emmett in his previous fight, so I don't know how much he's going to want to strike. I don't know, like, how timid he'll be with his fists, and I think that's the only way Bryce Mitchell can win this fight. Like, seriously, the only way he can win is on the feet, tuning up Kron Gracie, because Kron Gracie's boxing is, well, he did better with Cub than I thought, but it's not great. Like, you don't want to see Kron Gracie boxing. What you want to see is him get a takedown and then do his jiu-jitsu. But in his previous fights, he's struggled with the takedown. However, if this fight goes to the ground, man, if this goes to the ground, it favors Kron 100%. Like, 100%. If this becomes a jiu-jitsu match, Kron Gracie will choke out Bryce Mitchell. I do not see a world where Bryce Mitchell chokes out Kron Gracie. To me, with all the jiu-jitsu I've watched over my life, I think that that's an impossibility. So I don't exactly understand why Bryce Mitchell's a minus 800 favorite. I think if you're going to bet on a fight for UFC 310, you should bet on Kron Gracie by submission. You have two jiu-jitsu guys. One of them is the son of the greatest Gracie of all time, and he's one of the greatest no-gi grapplers I've ever seen in my life, and he's going up against, like, a kid, basically, and, like, experience-wise, Bryce Mitchell's a kid compared to Kron, and like I said, like, I think Bryce Mitchell needs to knock him out, and I don't know if he's going to be willing to throw the same way he did maybe in previous fights, because he's coming off of one of the most brutal knockouts we've ever seen. I don't know about this one, guys. I don't want to be wrong. Like, I don't want to tell people to put their money and then I end up wrong, but something in my heart is telling me, like, Kron Gracie's going to get a submission, and the odds makers are going to look foolish for making Bryce Mitchell a minus 800 favorite against Kron Gracie. I understand how he's looked in the UFC, but please go search up Kron Gracie jiu-jitsu highlights. There's like a 6-minute video in there. It's a fantastic video. It's very well edited, and he's fantastic. He's one of the greatest grapplers to ever live. So I'm going to take Kron Gracie by submission round 3 because it takes Kron a while to get a takedown. But yeah, that's how I'm calling that one. Next up, we have a heavyweight bout between number 2 ranked Ciryl Gane and number 3 ranked Alexander Volkov. Gane currently is a minus 345 favorite, and that is where I would put my money if I were you. This is going to be a striking battle for sure. Both these guys are strikers. They have some ground game, Volkov more than Gane, but I don't really see this one going to the ground. I think it'll stay on the feet. You have a 6'4 guy versus a 6'7 guy, and you might think that Volkov's reach will do him good. You might think that performance against Pavlovich will do him good, and he'll put on a show, but I think Gane's too much, man. I think Gane is the craftiest striker at heavyweight. In fact, I really, really want to see Gane versus Aspinall, not just for the England versus France rivalry, but because I think Gane has the same speed as Aspinall, maybe not with the hands, it's hard to say, but he's definitely faster with his kicks, and the power, you got to give it to Tom, obviously, but the fight IQ, you might have to give it to Ciryl. So that's one fight that I really, really want to see play out, so I really want Ciryl Gane to win this fight and get back at a title shot, because Ciryl Gane's one of those guys, man. Like, I understand his ground game's a little bit suspect. He did get taken down by one of the greatest grapplers ever in the sport, in John Jones. But when it's on the feet, man, he's one of the craftiest strikers ever. I think it was one of his recent fights where he was using hatchet punches. They're punches like this where you're trying to land with kind of the bottom of your hand. You see it in like older boxing fights more, but it's called a hatchet punch. And he was using hatchet punches. And I was like, yo, that's like incredibly crafty. And you watch Ciryl Gane, he does stuff like that all the time. You watch how fast his front kick to the body is. It's almost like a jab. You know, he keeps you at distance with his front kick to the body. It's so quick. So I love Ciryl Gane as somebody who loves watching, striking masters. He's one of the best in the sport right now, so I hope he gets this done. I'm going to take Ciryl Gane by second round knockout. Next up, we have a welterweight bout, the fight that I am most excited for this entire card, and I know we still have a championship fight to talk about that's really interesting, but for me, the fight on this entire card that sticks out the most is the number 3 ranked, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Gary. Now, Shavkat is currently a minus 375 favorite. That's because he has 18 fights, 18 wins, and 18 finishes. I believe 10 of them are by submission and 8 of them are by knockout. You watch the submissions and you watch the knockouts, and they are... I mean, he's going to do that to basically everybody. They almost look sloppy. They almost look slow motion sometimes. There's like a Dreykus element to it sometimes. But Shavkat, man, he can find it from anywhere. You see how he choked out Jeff Neal. You see how he knocked out some other people. Like, he is one of the scariest guys in the entire sport. And to have a perfect record like that, 18 wins, 18 finishes, that is rare. That is something that you would expect to see maybe from like a Topuria or by like a Chimaev. But even those guys can't, have perfect records like that. There's something special about Shavkat, and I think he does it again here. I think he gets I believe this is a 5-round fight. I hope they made this 5 rounds. I believe it's 5 rounds. If it is 5 rounds, I'm taking it by 4th round submission for Shavkat. If it's a 3-round fight, which I don't think it is, I'm pretty sure it's 5. Somebody can fact check me. I'll take it by 3rd round submission. I think it'll be a little bit later. I think the first couple rounds will be on the feet. Ian Gary has decent takedown defense, and he is really sharp on the feet. He's got the tools to knock Shavkat out, so Shavkat has to be careful. Ian Gary, I believe, has 7 KOs on his record, so I think Shavkat keeps it at a distance for a little bit, tunes him up a little bit from the outside, and then eventually he'll get a takedown, and eventually he'll submit Ian Gary. We've heard in some of the recent interviews that these guys have sparred before, and the UFC didn't release the footage, but Shavkat Rakhmonov has already tapped out Ian Gary. So I think that's going to happen again, and I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is the boogeyman of the welterweight division. I can't wait to see what he does next. I really think that he's going to take out that the champion at 170. I keep forgetting his name. Not really. I know his name. It's just a joke. But I think he's going to take out Belal, and I think he's going to be champion for a while. I don't think Belal has the skills to stop either one of these guys, to be honest. Either guy who wins, I think they stop Belal. I think that Leon Edwards fight, I think it was like a kryptonite fight for Leon. I watched that fight and I'm like, this sucks. I'm a kind of a Leon fan, but I'm honestly surprised that Colby Covington wasn't able to do this. I'm honestly surprised that Kamaru wasn't able to do this. I'm surprised that it took Bilal to do that kind of takedown and drag him out sort of fighting style against Leon. But yeah, like I said, Shavkat, that's my guy at welterweight, so I'm going to take him by 4th round submission. Like I said, if it's a 5-round fight, which I'm like 90% sure it is, if it's a 3-round fight, I'd put it 3rd round submission. So getting into the flyweight title bout, a lot of people are maybe confused on this one. Pantoja, last time he defended his belt. Steve Erceg, who the hell's this guy? Nobody knew who he was, right? Kind of a guy out of nowhere, but at least he was in the UFC already. This guy, now we got Kai Asakura. Who the heck's this guy? We've never heard of him either. A lot of people haven't heard of him because he was over in Ryzen. This is his first fight in the UFC, but trust me, he's very experienced, and this will be a fun fight. Kai Asakura, he has, I believe, 4 losses on his resume. One of them's to Manel Kopp, which is interesting. Kopp actually knocked him out. It was a little bit of a fast stoppage, but he wasn't really punching back, but he also wasn't out. It's a weird one. And then there was a decision in which he beat Kopp. So all 4 guys who have beaten Asakura, he's beaten them. So every single loss, he's avenged. Now, like I said, the Kopp one, he got knocked out by Kopp, and then he beat him by decision, and the decision was close. Like, you could have called it either way. The other 3 guys, I forget how the fights went. I don't have them pulled up right now, as I don't want to read off my phone. But the other 3 fights, he did avenge all 3 of them. So every single loss that he has, all 4 of them, he's actually avenged each one of them. So that's an interesting thing. However, Kai Asakura is 1-3 in title fights. So he recently won the belt, I believe, in 2023, and then he vacated it and came to the UFC. But prior to that, he had 3 shots at the belt, and he lost all 3 of those fights. Now, obviously, those 3 guys he ended up beating, but that is something to note. And he's also coming over to the UFC, which I understand he was a Japanese star fighting in Japan for a while, so he is used to the limelight. However, the UFC lights are a lot brighter, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get it done, especially against a killer like Pantoja, somebody who's beaten Moreno twice, Royval twice. He's got wins over so many great guys, and his losses have all been by decision. Nobody has ever stopped Pantoja yet. He's 33 years old. He's right in his prime. He's bald-headed for this fight. He looks like an absolute savage. And there's just something about Pantoja, man. I don't think Kai is the Japanese fighter to beat him. However, there are a couple Japanese fighters in this weight class who I think do have the skills to beat Pantoja, especially if it goes to the ground, because Pantoja is a fantastic jiu-jitsu artist. However, Ray and Tyra, I forget Ray's last name, but he's only 22. He's got a couple more years to go. But Tyra, man, that last fight, split decision, could have went either way. I do think that he lost, but just by like a penny, man. It was by like an inch. Tyra is one guy. He's only 24 years old. I think eventually when he comes up, he will be the guy to dethrone Pantoja, and I think he will have a long reign at flyweight. Perhaps he can chase DJ's records. That's going to be difficult. You'd have to go and win like 12 fights in a row, but I don't think Kai Asakura has what it takes to beat Pantoja, unfortunately. Pantoja's closing in at a minus 285 favorite, and I would put my money on him to win by submission, probably round 3 by submission. I think it's going to take maybe a couple rounds. Kai does have quite a few finishes on his resume. He is pretty good on the ground as well. I believe he has like 10 KOs on his resume. I could be wrong, but he's definitely a dangerous fighter. This is going to be a very fun, very close fight. I don't want to downplay it. It's going to be close. However, I think Pantoja's too much right now. I really think like if there's somebody to beat him, it's going to be Ray or Tyra. But again, those guys are 22 and 24 years old. Pantoja's 33. He's in his prime. It's going to be hard for anybody to knock him off of the mountain right now. Maybe some people disagree. Maybe some people are huge fans of Kai Asakura. Maybe you watch a lot of Ryzen. You love the Japanese fighters. I do too. Some of my favorite fighters of all time are Japanese, but I don't think this is going to go well for Kai. I think when you have your first fight in the UFC and you're fighting for a championship, you're the second last guy to walk out. It's a lot of pressure, man. It's a lot of pressure, and I'm going to be cheering for him because he's 21-4, 13 wins by knockout. 12 of those 12 of those finishes he's had in the first round. He also has 3 wins by submission. So, You know, he's a dangerous, dangerous fighter, and I would love for him to win. Like, it would be a cool shakeup. I don't, like, dislike Pantoja. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Pantoja, but I would like a little bit of a shakeup in the flyweight division. I think there's a lot of good fighters there right now, and, you know, maybe if you got Asakura as champ and maybe they do a rematch and he beats Pantoja twice, you know, you could see Asakura versus Tybura in Japan. That would be really, really cool. I really want to see the UFC return to Japan. Japan, man, they've produced some of my favorite fighters of all time. So yeah, I'm just excited to watch this one. I hope it's a good fight. Like I said, I got Pantoja round 3 submission. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Who do you guys have winning each fight? What method? All that kind of fun stuff. And if you guys disagree with any of my picks, let me know down below. I love chatting with you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. It helps boost this channel and the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it means the world to me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.